The vast expanse of space had never posed a challenge to the Zalarian Empire. 80 star systems across 200 years of conquest, their dominance was a mathematical certainty, a force as inexorable as gravity itself. The colossal warship, Oblivion, hung in the darkness, like a metallic leviathan, its hull adorned with the battle scars of 100 subjugations, each one as efficient as the last. Admiral Calyx stood on the command bridge, his translucent skin glimmering under the soft blue lighting. 6 slender fingers tapped rhythmically against the tactical display as he reviewed the intelligence reports from the scout vessels. The Valeris system, an agricultural haven nestled in the lower spiral arm of the galaxy, would make an excellent addition to their ever-growing empire. Preliminary scans indicate minimal defensive capabilities, reported Subcommander Vex, her voice a melodic hum that resonated through the neural implants of every officer present. The Eden Federation appears to have classified this as a non-militarized zone. Calyx's thin lips curved into what passed for a smile among the Zalarians. Excellent. Another world ripe for integration. Prepare the drone fleets for orbital suppression. Standard protocol. Far below, on the lush surface of Valeris Prime, Major Aria Novak stood before the Planetary Council, her uniform bearing the insignia of the Eden Federation's patrol vessel, Aegis. The council chambers, a magnificent dome of living crystal and engineered wood, felt suffocatingly small as she delivered her warning. The Zalarian scout ships entered our sensor range 3 days ago. She explained, her voice steady, despite the gravity of her message. Their patterns match those observed before the fall of the Arcturus and Centauri Rim colonies. Counselor Dalen, a portly man with silver-streaked hair, leaned forward in his carved chair. But we are a peaceful agricultural world. We have trade agreements with 17 systems. Surely the Zalarians wouldn't. With respect, Counselor, Arya interrupted, the Zalarians don't differentiate between military outposts and farming communities. They see resources, not people. The chamber erupted in murmurs, but Arya continued projecting tactical simulations onto the central holographic display. The peaceful blue globe of Valeris transformed into a grid of resource extraction points, the beautiful landscape systematically stripped and processed. We have perhaps 48 hours before their main battle group arrives. The Aegis is prepared to coordinate evacuation procedures, but I need authorization to establish a defensive perimeter. Counselor Thala, an elderly woman whose dark skin bore the ritual markings of Valeris's founding families, raised her hand for silence. Major Novak, the Eden Charter explicitly forbids military escalation without direct provocation. To deploy weapons now would violate our most sacred principles. Arya's jaw tightened. With respect, Counselor, those principles won't matter once the Zalarians arrive. I've seen what remains after their integration process. Before Thala could respond, the chamber's emergency systems flared to life. Red lights pulsed along the walls as the Planetary Defense Coordinator burst through the ornate doors, his face ashen. Multiple vessels detected entering the system. Energy signatures match Zalarian warfleet configurations. Arya turned back to the council, her earlier composure replaced by urgency. Your authorization now. But it was already too late. The Zalarian warship, Oblivion, emerged from hyperspace, like a predator, flanked by a swarm of smaller attack vessels that immediately fanned out across Valeris's orbital space. Within minutes, the automated defense satellites, little more than early warning systems, had been systematically neutralized. On the bridge of the Aegis, temporarily docked at Valeris's orbital station, Arya watched in horror as the Zalarian drones deployed with mechanical precision. The ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant J. Malik, worked frantically at his console. They've disabled the planetary shield generators. He reported, his dark eyes fixed on the cascading failure warnings. Orbital defense grid is down. They're moving faster than any previous encounter on record. Arya's mind raced through the tactical options, all of them bad. The Aegis was a patrol vessel, not a warship. Its weapon systems were designed for peacekeeping, not standing against a full Zalarian invasion force. "Communications open a secure channel to Eden Command," she ordered. "Priority Alpha, authorization Novak 7 Delta 3. As the communications officer complied, Arya turned to her executive officer. "Begin emergency launch procedures. We can't help Valeris if we're trapped in dock when those drones reach the station." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Arya could sense their fear. Most had joined the Eden patrol forces, expecting routine missions, monitoring trade routes, mediating minor disputes, assisting with scientific expeditions. None had signed up for war. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying the stern face of Admiral Reyes at Eden Command Headquarters, back on Earth. Major Novak. He acknowledged his expression, betraying his awareness of the situation. "Our long-range sensors have detected the Zalarian presence in Valeris. Your report?" "Sir, we're facing a full invasion force. The Oblivion has been confirmed as the command vessel. Planetary defenses are already neutralized, and we estimate ground forces will begin deployment within the hour." Rhea's expression darkened. "Casualties?" "Unknown at this time, but the orbital station is taking heavy fire. Civilian evacuation has barely begun." The Admiral was silent for a moment, his eyes closing briefly, as he processed the information. When he opened them again, Arya saw something she'd never expected from the usually cautious Commander Resolve. "Major Novak, I am hereby promoting you to acting commander of the Eden Defense Force in the Valeris sector. The experimental vessels Hermes Athena and Perseus are being dispatched to your position, but they won't arrive for at least 72 hours. Arya felt her throat tighten. "Sir, Valeris will be fully under Zalarian control by then." "I am aware, Commander. Your orders are not to engage in a direct confrontation with the Zalarian fleet. You are to gather tactical data, assist in civilian evacuation where possible, and rendezvous with our battle group at the edge of the Milky Way. This is no longer about saving one world, Arya. This is about saving them all." The transmission ended, leaving Arya staring at the blank screen. Around her, the bridge had fallen silent. All eyes turned to their newly promoted commander. Lieutenant Mullick broke the silence. "Commander, your orders." Arya straightened her shoulders. "Launch immediately. Set course for the dark side of Valeris's third moon. We'll monitor the invasion from there and coordinate rescue operations as opportunities present themselves." As the Aegis disengaged from the orbital dock, alarms blared throughout the ship. The tactical display showed a wave of Zalarian drones converging on their position. "Evasive maneuvers," Arya commanded. "Divert power to forward shields." The ship lurched as engineering responded, the deck plates vibrating beneath their feet. On the view screen, the sleek insectoid forms of the Zalarian attack drones grew larger. "They're targeting our propulsion systems," Malik reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical controls. "Point defense batteries engaging, but there are too many of them." Arya gripped the arms of her command chair. "Engineering, can we manage a short-range hyperspace jump?" The chief engineer's voice crackled over the comm. "The drive isn't designed for in-system jumps, Commander. We'd risk tearing the ship apart." "Understood." Arya's mind raced through alternatives. "Helm, take us into the orbital debris field. Maximum thruster power." The helmsman looked back in alarm. "Ma'am, at these speeds the debris could—" "Do it, Ensign. The Zalarians rely on predictive targeting. Let's give them something unpredictable." The Aegis banked sharply, accelerating toward the scattered remains of Valeris's defense satellites. Behind them, the swarm of drones adjusted their trajectory, their formation tightening as they pursued. "Entering debris field in 5 seconds." The helmsman announced, his voice tight with concentration. Arya opened a shipwide channel. All hands brace for impact. The Aegis plunged into the debris field, alarms wailing as fragments of destroyed satellites scraped against the hull. On the tactical display, Arya watched as the pursuing drones attempted to maintain their perfect formation, a fatal mistake in the chaotic environment. Several collided with large debris pieces, their explosions creating a chain reaction that consumed nearly a third of the swarm. "Maintain course," Arya ordered as the ship shuddered from a glancing impact. Take us deeper into the field. For several heart-stopping minutes, the Aegis performed a deadly dance through the orbital wreckage, its human pilot making split-second adjustments that the algorithmic Zalarian drones couldn't match. One by one, the pursuers were destroyed or disabled, until finally the tactical display showed clear space ahead. "We've lost them," Malik reported, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "Drone swarm has been neutralized." A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Arya remained focused. "Damage report. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5 contained by emergency force fields. Primary sensors at 60% efficiency. Hyperdrive nominal, but the power couplings took a beating." Arya nodded grimly. "Set course for the rendezvous coordinates, but keep us within the system's outer boundary. I want continuous sensor sweeps of the Zalarian fleet movements." As the Aegis limped toward relative safety, Arya's gaze returned to the main view screen, where Valeris Prime gleamed like a blue-green jewel. Already, she could see the patterns of Zalarian landing craft descending through the atmosphere, their heat signatures blossoming against the planet's surface. "I'm sorry," she whispered too quietly for the bridge crew to hear. "We'll be back." On the command bridge of the Oblivion Admiral, Calyx reviewed the reports from the ground forces with growing satisfaction. The Valeris invasion was proceeding even more efficiently than projected. Resistance had been minimal, a few scattered defense forces quickly overwhelmed by superior numbers and technology. Admiral, Sub-Commander Vex approached her movements as precise as clockwork. "We've lost contact with Drone Squadron 7. Calyx's elongated fingers paused over the tactical display. "Explanation." "Unclear, sir. They were pursuing an Eden vessel patrol class when all signals terminated in the debris field. A patrol vessel destroyed an entire drone squadron." Calyx's tone conveyed skepticism rather than concern. "The data suggests the humans used the debris as a weapon, sir. Unpredictable flight patterns, deliberate collisions tactics our drones aren't programmed to counter." For the first time, a flicker of interest crossed Calyx's features. In 2 centuries of expansion, the Zalarian Empire had encountered countless species, with varying levels of technology and resistance. None had presented a significant challenge once the Empire committed to conquest. "Identify this vessel. I want to know its capabilities, its commander, and its current trajectory." As Vex hurried to comply, Calyx returned his attention to the invasion below. One escape patrol ship was hardly a concern when an entire world was being successfully subjugated. Still, something about the incident nagged at him, a sensation almost foreign to Zalarian's curiosity. "Sir, we've identified the vessel as the Eden Federation patrol ship, Aegis, commanded by Major Arya Novak, recently promoted to commander, according to intercepted communications." Calyx absorbed the information. "And their current status?" "The Aegis appears to be remaining within the system monitoring our operations. Their damaged state suggests they're awaiting reinforcements." "Reinforcements," Calyx tested the word. The Eden Federation had always been a diplomatic entity, their military forces scattered and primarily defensive. The idea that they might mount a coordinated response was novel. "Continue planetary operations as scheduled," he ordered. "But dispatch a hunter-killer group to eliminate this Aegis. I dislike loose ends." 72 hours passed with agonizing slowness aboard the Aegis. Commander Novak had ordered rotating shifts to allow the crew much-needed rest, but she herself had barely left the bridge, catching moments of sleep in her command chair during quiet periods. The engineering team, led by the brilliant Lana Ortiz, had worked miracles repairing the damage sustained during their escape. The ship was now operating at nearly full capacity, but the psychological toll on the crew was evident in their haggard faces and tense silence. "Commander," Lieutenant Malik called from his station. "Long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace signatures at the rendezvous coordinates. Eden vessels confirmed." A collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge. Arya allowed herself a small smile. "Set course to intercept. Maximum speed." As the Aegis accelerated toward the edge of the system, Arya studied the tactical data they'd gathered during their vigil. The Zalarian invasion had been methodical and thorough. Agricultural centers converted to resource processing plants. Population centers consolidated into labor camps. Orbital infrastructure repurposed for the Empire's needs. But she'd also observed patterns vulnerabilities in the Zalarian command structure, their over-reliance on drone swarms, the predictable deployment of their ground forces. Information that might prove invaluable in the coming conflict. The rendezvous occurred in the shadow of a massive gas giant at the system's edge. The Aegis approached cautiously, its sensors confirming the presence of 3 vessels of unfamiliar configuration, sleek, angular ships with distinctive Eden markings, but none of the usual patrol vessel architecture. "This is Commander Novak of the Aegis," Arya broadcast as they approached, requesting permission to dock for conference. The response came immediately. "Aegis, this is Captain Thorne of the Hermes. Permission granted. The Athena and Perseus commanders will join us aboard my vessel." The docking procedure was executed with precision, and soon Arya found herself in the Hermes' surprisingly spacious conference room, facing 3 fellow officers, whose expressions mirrored her own determination. Captain Eleanor Thorne of the Hermes was a tall, imposing woman, with close-cropped gray hair and piercing blue eyes. Captain Raj Singh of the Athena carried himself with the disciplined posture of a career military man, his dark beard neatly trimmed. Commander Alexander Volkov of the Perseus was younger than the others, with a reputation as a tactical prodigy that had earned him early promotion. "Commander Novak." Thorne began, her voice carrying the crisp accent of Earth's European Union. "Your survival and the data you've collected are invaluable. Admiral Reyes has tasked us with assessing the Zalarian threat and developing countermeasures." Arya nodded, activating the holographic display at the center of the conference table. "The Zalarians have established complete control over Valeris within 60 hours of arrival. Their efficiency is impressive." The holo display showed detailed schematics of the Zalarian vessels, drone formations, and ground deployment patterns. They operate on what military intelligence calls a one-way eye strategy, overwhelming force applied with absolute confidence. They don't expect resistance once their initial assault succeeds, which creates blind spots in their defense structure. Captain Singh leaned forward, studying the drone patterns. "You managed to destroy a squadron by exploiting their formation protocols." "Yes. The drones operate on a hive mind system, individually simplistic, but collectively powerful. Disrupt their communication, and they become vulnerable." Commander Volkov tapped his finger against the table. "But the Oblivion itself remains their center of operations. According to your data, it carries enough firepower to obliterate our entire battle group." "In a direct confrontation, yes," Arya agreed. "But I believe we can use their own confidence against them." For the next several hours, the 4 officers analyzed the Zalarian tactics, comparing notes from previous encounters and developing a framework for resistance. What emerged was not a plan for immediate victory. They were still hopelessly outgunned, but a strategy for survival and eventual counterattack. Space tunnel tactics. Arya explained, manipulating the holographic display to show the complex 3-dimensional maneuver she'd envisioned. "The Zalarians rely on predictive algorithms for targeting. If we create a precisely coordinated series of micro-jumps between our 4 ships, we can effectively generate a hyperspace corridor that confuses their targeting systems." Captain Thorne looked skeptical. "The timing would need to be perfect. A millisecond delay could leave a ship exposed." "That's where these come in," Arya said, producing a small data crystal. "Lieutenant Malik and Engineer Ortiz have developed a synchronized navigation protocol. It allows our 4 vessels to coordinate jump sequences through quantum entanglement, essentially making our movements appear random to observers while following a predetermined pattern." Commander Volkov's eyes widened. "Brilliant. And if we combine this with targeted strikes against their drone control nodes, we could potentially neutralize their numerical advantage," Arya concluded. Captain Singh rubbed his beard thoughtfully. "It's a start. But even with these tactics, we're looking at guerrilla warfare, not open confrontation. For now, Captain Thorne agreed. But every successful strike will provide more data, more captured technology, and more importantly, it will show the Zalarians that humans aren't as easily conquered as they assumed. The planning continued through the ship's night cycle, each officer contributing their expertise to what was rapidly becoming the Eden Federation's first coordinated military response to the Zalarian threat. By morning, a daring strategy had taken shape, one that would test the limits of their ships, their crews, and their courage. "We begin with reconnaissance," Captain Thorne summarized, as they prepared to return to their respective vessels. "Small strikes against outlying Zalarian patrols to test our tactics and gather intelligence. Then, when we're ready, we target the drone command nodes on the Oblivion itself." Arya's expression was grim, but determined. "And we prioritize civilian rescue operations wherever possible. Every Valeris citizen we save is both a humanitarian victory and a strategic one. They know the planet, the resources, the hiding places." With final assignments distributed, the 4 commanding officers parted ways, each bearing the weight of their unprecedented mission. As Arya prepared to return to the Aegis, Captain Thorne stopped her with a hand on her shoulder. "Commander Novak, I reviewed your service record. You've never commanded in combat before this." Arya met the older woman's gaze steadily. "No, Captain. I've spent most of my career on scientific escort and diplomatic missions." Thorne's expression softened slightly. "Sometimes the best warriors are those who understand most deeply what's at stake. Your actions at Valeris saved your ship and gave us vital intelligence. Remember that in the difficult days ahead." With a respectful nod, Arya returned to the Aegis where her crew awaited orders. The mission that lay before them would transform them all, from peacekeepers to warriors, a transformation none had sought, but all now embraced out of necessity. As the 4 Eden vessels dispersed to their assigned patrol sectors, a new chapter in humanity's interstellar history began, one written in the cold vacuum of space, by officers determined to prove that conquest was never a mathematical certainty. Admiral Calix reviewed the reports from the hunter-killer group with mounting frustration. 3 days of searching had yielded no sign of the Aegis or any other Eden vessels within the Valeris system. It was as if they had simply vanished, an impossibility, given the Empire's sophisticated tracking capabilities. "Perhaps they retreated to Eden core worlds," suggested Sub-Commander Vex, misinterpreting her superior's silence. "No," Calix replied, his fingers tracing patterns across the star map. "They're still here watching us. The question is why?" The answer came sooner than expected. Alarm klaxons blared across the Oblivion as the tactical display registered weapons fire at the outer system checkpoint. A small Zalarian patrol vessel was under attack, its distress signal cutting off abruptly. "Visual confirmation," the sensor officer reported. "Eden vessels, 4 distinct configurations." The display showed a brief glimpse of sleek ships executing an impossible maneuver, disappearing and reappearing in a coordinated sequence that left the Zalarian patrol vessels firing at empty space. When the Eden ships reappeared, they did so with precision, targeting specific vulnerabilities before vanishing again. Fascinating," Calix murmured, his scientific curiosity temporarily overshadowing his military responsibilities. "They've developed some form of coordinated micro-jumping technology." Sub-Commander Vex was less impressed. "They destroyed 3 patrol vessels, Admiral. Shall I dispatch the reserve fleet to intercept?" Calix considered the tactical implications. The Eden ships had struck with surgical precision and withdrawn before a proper response could be mounted. Sending the reserve fleet would leave the Oblivion with reduced protection, an acceptable risk against most opponents. But these humans had demonstrated unexpected capabilities. "No," he decided. "Increase drone patrols throughout the system and implement adaptive targeting protocols. These humans are testing us, Sub-Commander. Let us see what they do next." Over the following weeks, a deadly game of cat and mouse unfolded across the Valeris system. The 4 Eden vessels, now dubbed the Ghost Fleet by relieved civilians, executed hit-and-run attacks against Zalarian outposts, supply lines, and drone squadrons. Each strike was carefully planned to minimize the risk of direct confrontation while maximizing damage to the Empire's infrastructure. Aboard the Aegis, Commander Novak developed a reputation as a tactical innovator. Her background in scientific escort missions had given her an understanding of spatial phenomena that she now weaponized against the Zalarians. Gravity wells became ambush points, radiation belts served as cover for approaching Eden vessels, and the complex dance of Valeris's many moons provided ever-changing shadows in which to hide. "They're adapting," Lieutenant Malik reported during one strategy session, his analysis of captured drone fragments spread across the briefing room table. Each new generation of drones shows modified targeting algorithms designed to counter our jump patterns. Engineer Ortiz nodded in agreement. "They're learning our tricks almost as fast as we can develop them. The quantum entanglement protocol barely gave us an advantage in the last engagement." Arya studied the drone components thoughtfully. "Then, we need to change our approach. Instead of outmaneuvering their drones, perhaps we can control them." The audacious plan that followed required the combined expertise of all 4 Eden vessels. While the Hermes Perseus and Athena conducted diversionary attacks across the system, the Aegis would attempt the most dangerous mission, yet capturing an intact Zalarian command node from one of their forward bases. The operation was scheduled for what passed as night in the space around Valeris Prime. The Aegis approached the Zalarian outpost under minimal power, its heat signature masked by a nearby volcanic moon. On the bridge, Commander Novak monitored the progress of the diversionary attacks, waiting for the precise moment when the outpost's defenses would be at their weakest. "Comms from the Perseus," reported the communications officer. "They've engaged the Zalarian patrol fleet at the outer markers. Hermes and Athena are commencing their runs on the processing stations." Arya nodded. "Tactical status of the outpost defenses." Lieutenant Malik studied his readouts. "Drone complement reduced by 30%. They're responding to the diversionary attacks. Automated defense systems remain at full capacity." Engineering status of the shield modifications. Engineer Ortiz's voice came through clear on the comm. "Ready, Commander. The inversive field should disrupt their sensor grid long enough for insertion, but will be visible to visual observation." "Understood." Arya took a deep breath. "Helm, take us in. Full stealth approach until we cross the sensor perimeter, then maximum burn to the insertion point." The Aegis glided forward, its darkened hull barely distinguishable against the void of space. As they approached the outpost's sensor perimeter, tension on the bridge reached a crescendo. "Activating inverse field in 3, 2, 1. A subtle vibration passed through the ship as Ortiz's modified shields generated a localized disruption in the space-time continuum, effectively creating a blind spot in the Zalarian sensor grid. For a few precious seconds, the Aegis would be invisible to all but direct visual observation. "Now helm maximum burn." The ship surged forward, its engines flaring to life as it raced toward the outpost. On the tactical display, the automated defense turrets remained dormant, their targeting systems confused by the inverse field. "Approaching insertion point." The helmsman reported, his voice tight with concentration. 15 seconds to optimum position." Arya opened a channel to the insertion team, waiting in the launch bay. "Strike team, prepare for deployment. Remember, we need that command node intact." "Copy that, Commander," came the steady voice of Lieutenant Commander Ramirez, the Aegis security chief. "My team is ready." The Aegis slowed just enough to deploy the insertion team's shuttle, before accelerating again, drawing the outpost's fire as the smaller craft approached from the opposite vector. Alarms blared as the Zalarian defense turrets finally locked onto the Eden vessel. "Evasive pattern. Delta." Arya ordered as the first energy beams lanced through space toward them. "Keep their attention on us." For the next 15 minutes, the bridge crew performed a deadly ballet, weaving the Aegis through increasingly accurate defensive fire, while monitoring the insertion team's progress. Ramirez's voice came through in terse updates, breaching the outpost's outer hull, encountering light resistance, securing the command center. "We've located the node," Ramirez reported finally, the sounds of energy weapons discharging audible in the background. "Beginning extraction procedure." Arya checked the tactical display with growing concern. The diversionary attacks had succeeded too well. Zalarian reinforcements were now converging on their position from across the system. "Ramirez status update. We're running out of time." "Almost there, Commander." The Zalarians implemented a self-destruct protocol, but Specialist Zhang is bypassing it. 2 more minutes. Arya exchanged glances with Lieutenant Malik. They didn't have 2 minutes. "Engineering, can we extend the inverse field to cover the outpost?" "Negative, Commander," Ortiz replied immediately. "The field generators are already at critical levels. We'd risk cascade failure." The tactical display updated, showing Zalarian vessels entering visual range. Their weapons were charging, target locks imminent. "Ramirez," Arya's voice was deadly calm. "You have 30 seconds." For an agonizing half-minute, the bridge crew held their collective breath. The Zalarian vessels drew closer, their weapons capacitors reaching peak charge. Then, just as Arya was about to order emergency withdrawal, Ramirez's voice crackled through the comm. "Extraction complete. We have the node heading to extraction point now." "Helm, take us in," Arya commanded. "Weapons provide covering fire. Full spread pattern, Echo 6. The Aegis surged forward its weapons arrays, unleashing a barrage designed not to destroy the outpost, but to confuse and delay the approaching Zalarian vessels. The tactical gambit worked. The enemy ships diverted power to shields, giving the insertion team's shuttle precious seconds to clear the outpost's immediate vicinity. "Shuttle docked," reported the launch bay officer. "Strike team aboard with package secured." "Get us out of here," Arya ordered. "Micro jump to Rally Point Baker." As the Aegis disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the confused Zalarian vessels behind, a cheer erupted from the bridge crew. They had just accomplished what many would have deemed impossible, stealing a critical piece of Zalarian technology from under the Empire's nose. But Arya knew their victory was tentative at best. The real challenge lay ahead, learning to use the captured command node to turn the Zalarians' drone armies against them. Admiral Calix stared at the damage assessment with an emotion rarely experienced by Zalarians' rage. The audacity of the humans was unprecedented. Not only had they destroyed valuable outposts and disrupted supply lines, but they had now directly stolen Zalarian military technology. "The command node has been completely removed," reported the security officer, his usual composure shaken. "The humans bypassed 12 layers of security protocols and neutralized the self-destruct mechanism." Sub-Commander Vex, standing at attention beside Calix, ventured an observation. "This suggests a level of technological sophistication we did not attribute to the Eden Federation." Calix's 6-fingered hand closed into a fist. "No, Sub-Commander. It suggests a level of determination we did not attribute to humans. Their technology remains inferior, but their creativity is proving problematic." The holographic display shifted to show the 4 Eden vessels that had been identified in various engagements across the system. The Aegis, Hermes, Perseus, and Athena, unremarkable ships individually yet together, they had inflicted more damage on Zalarian operations than any opposition in recent memory. These raids follow a pattern. Calix noted, his analytical mind reasserting control over his irritation. They prioritize civilian extraction over military targets, suggesting emotional rather than strategic motivation. "A weakness we can exploit," Vex suggested. "Perhaps." Calix manipulated the display, highlighting a dense asteroid field near Volaris's second moon. "Or perhaps an opportunity to end this resistance once and for all. Prepare the fleet for deployment. I will personally oversee the operation." The Eden Fleet's temporary base of operations had been established in the sprawling Denwood asteroid cluster, a chaotic collection of mineral-rich rocks that created a natural labyrinth of tunnels and caverns. Here, the 4 vessels could dock for repairs, rotate crew shifts, and most importantly coordinate their increasingly bold strikes against the Zalarian occupation. In a converted mining chamber, large enough to accommodate representatives from all 4 ships, Commander Novak presented their latest acquisition to her fellow officers. The Zalarian Command Node, she explained, indicating the crystalline device suspended in a containment field. According to our analysis, it's the primary relay for drone swarm coordination within a specific operational area. Engineer Ortiz stepped forward, her hands moving through the holographic interface surrounding the node. We've isolated the command protocols and begun developing an interface that will allow us to issue contradictory orders to Zalarian drones. Captain Thorne of the Hermes looked impressed despite her usual reserve. You're suggesting we could turn their own weapons against them? Not precisely, Arya clarified. The security protocols are too sophisticated for direct control. But we can create signal interference, essentially jamming their command structure and forcing the drones into safe mode behaviors. Commander Volkov of the Perseus leaned forward, his tactical mind immediately grasping the implications, which would neutralize their numerical advantage in any engagement. Captain Singh of the Athena raised a practical concern. The effective range? Approximately 5,000 kilometers, Ortiz replied. We'll need to get close to the primary control vessels to affect their drone complements. Close to the Oblivion, you mean? Thorne said, her expression darkening. A somber mood settled over the gathering. Despite their successes, they all understood the central reality of their situation. The Zalarian flagship remained an almost insurmountable obstacle. Its weapon system shields and sheer size made it virtually impregnable to their available firepower. We don't need to destroy the Oblivion, Arya reminded them. We just need to disrupt their command structure long enough to extract more civilians and damage their resource processing capabilities. The strategy session continued late into the night, with each commander contributing their expertise to what was becoming an increasingly coordinated resistance effort. When they finally adjourned, a bold plan had taken shape, one that would bring them into direct conflict with the heart of the Zalarian occupation force. None of them suspected that Admiral Calix had already anticipated their strategy and set a trap that would test their newfound unity to its limits. The operation began at the outer edges of the Valeris system. The Perseus and Athena launched simultaneous strikes against Zalarian resource convoys, drawing response forces away from the primary fleet. Meanwhile, the Hermes deployed near Valeris's largest moon, its enhanced sensor suite monitoring Zalarian fleet movements and providing real-time intelligence to the other vessels. Aboard, the Aegis Commander Novak and her crew made final preparations for the most dangerous phase of the plan. With the captured command node integrated into their systems, they would approach the Oblivion itself, activate the signal disruptor, and temporarily neutralize the ship's drone defenses. Command node integration complete, reported Engineer Ortiz from her station. Power systems stable at 87%, the best we can hope for given the incompatibilities. Lieutenant Malik's hands moved steadily across the tactical console. Jamming protocols loaded and ready. Effective range estimated at 4,800 meters. We'll need to get close. Arya nodded, her expression betraying none of the anxiety she felt. Status of the diversionary operations. Perseus and Athena report successful engagements. Zalarian response forces are diverted to the outer system as planned. Hermes confirms the Oblivion's drone complement is currently at 70% deployment. Perfect. Arya opened a shipwide channel. All hands, this is Commander Novak. We're about to execute the most critical operation of our campaign. Each of you has performed beyond expectation in these past weeks. Today, we show the Zalarians that humanity will not surrender to tyranny without a fight. Stations for combat maneuvers. The Aegis emerged from its hiding place within the Denwood asteroid cluster, its engines at full power, as it accelerated toward the last reported position of the Oblivion. According to intelligence from the Hermes, the Zalarian flagship was conducting a routine patrol near Valeris's third moon, its commander evidently confident in the security of the conquered system. Approaching sensor range of the target area, Malik reported. No sign of the Oblivion yet. Arya frowned. Something felt wrong. Admiral Calix had proven himself a methodical opponent, his movements predictable in their precision. For the Oblivion to deviate from its established patrol pattern was concerning. "Full sensor sweep," she ordered. "Check for anomalous readings in the local space." Before Malik could comply, the tactical display erupted with new contacts. Zalarian vessels were decloaking all around them, not just patrol ships, but heavy cruisers, their weapons already charged and targeting the Aegis. "It's an ambush!" Malik exclaimed, his fingers flying across the console. "Multiple hostiles boxing formation!" Arya's mind raced through their options, none of them good. Evasive pattern Omega, get us out of their crossfire. The Aegis banked sharply, its engines straining, as it attempted to break through the encirclement. Energy beams lanced through space, several grazing the ship's shields and causing power fluctuations throughout the vessel. "Shields at 60%, called the engineering officer. "Direct hit to the starboard nacelle." "Return fire all batteries," Arya commanded. "Communications alert the fleet." But as the Aegis fought to escape the trap, a massive shadow loomed above them. The Oblivion had appeared directly in their path, its immense hull blocking any hope of escape. On the main view screen, the Zalarian flagship seemed to fill the entire sky, its weapons ports glowing with deadly energy. "All stop," Arya ordered quietly. "Power to shields." The bridge fell silent as the crew faced what appeared to be the end of their resistance. The Aegis hung motionless in space, surrounded by enemy vessels, its shields failing, and weapons hopelessly outmatched. On the command bridge of the Oblivion Admiral, Calix observed the trapped Eden vessel with cold satisfaction. As predicted, he noted to Subcommander Vex. Their concern for their comrades led them directly into our trap. Vex nodded approvingly. "Shall I order their immediate destruction?" Calix considered the option before shaking his head. "No. Prepare a boarding party. I wish to examine their command node modifications personally. The crew can be processed with the other human captives." As the boarding preparations began, Calix studied the Eden vessel on his display. Its design was unremarkable, its weapons primitive by Zalarian standards. Yet, this unimpressive ship and its determined crew had managed to disrupt Imperial operations more effectively than any opponent in recent memory. "A pity their resistance ends here," he mused. "They showed potential." Aboard the Aegis commander, Novak refused to accept defeat. "Status of the command node interface," she asked Engineer Ortiz, her voice low enough that only the bridge crew could hear. "Operational but without effect," Ortiz replied. "We're still outside optimal range for the jamming signal." Arya glanced at the tactical display where the Oblivion loomed impossibly large. "What if we reverse the polarity instead of jamming their signals? Could we amplify them?" Ortiz's eyes widened as she grasped the implication. "Create a signal overflow in their drone network." "It's possible, but the power requirements would be massive. We'd need to divert all energy from life support weapon shields." "Do it," Arya ordered without hesitation. "Lieutenant Malik, prepare to transmit a general distress signal on all Eden frequencies the moment the power diverts." As the engineering team worked frantically to reconfigure the command node, Arya opened a shipwide channel. "All hands, this is Commander Novak. Prepare for emergency power shutdown. Oxygen reserves will be limited to 5 minutes. This is our only chance." The lights on the bridge dimmed as power was systematically diverted to the modified command node. Life support systems went offline, followed by weapons and finally shields. In the eerie red glow of the emergency lighting, the bridge crew watched their oxygen levels begin to drop. Command node reconfigured. Ortiz reported her breath visible in the rapidly cooling air. "Signal amplification ready." "Transmit distress call now," Arya ordered Malik. "Then activate the node." A brief burst of energy emanated from the Aegis communications array, a desperate call for help that seemed pitifully inadequate against the overwhelming Zalarian force. Then, with a surge of power that momentarily dimmed even the emergency lighting, the command node activated. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then throughout the Zalarian fleet, drone vessels began to behave erratically. Some accelerated to maximum speed before shutting down completely. Others fired weapons at random vectors. Still others simply exploded, their control systems overloaded by the amplified command signals. On the bridge of the Oblivion, chaos erupted as status reports flooded in from across the fleet. "Drone networks experiencing cascade failures," reported a panicked officer. "The signal, it's overriding our control protocols." Admiral Calyx moved with surprising speed to the central console. "Isolate the command frequencies. Shut down all drone deployments." But the damage was already spreading. The Oblivion's own internal systems began to malfunction as the amplified signal penetrated its supposedly impenetrable security protocols. Lights flickered, weapon systems cycled randomly, and gravity plating failed in multiple sections. In the midst of this chaos, new alerts sounded. 3 Eden vessels were emerging from hyperspace at different vectors: the Hermes, Perseus, and Athena, their weapons charged and targeting the disoriented Zalarian fleet. "Impossible," Calyx whispered, watching as his carefully planned trap dissolved into disaster. "They couldn't have anticipated this." But the truth was simpler and more profound than the Admiral could comprehend. The Eden fleet had not anticipated the trap. They had simply responded to their comrades' distress with immediate and unified action, a concept foreign to the hierarchical Zalarians. The 3 Eden vessels launched a coordinated attack against the now vulnerable Zalarian fleet. With their drone networks in disarray and command systems compromised, the once invincible warships found themselves outmaneuvered by the smaller, more agile human vessels. Aboard the Aegis, oxygen levels reached critical lows as the crew fought to remain conscious. Through blurring vision, Commander Novak watched on the tactical display as their allies executed a perfect flanking maneuver, creating a corridor through the Zalarian blockade. "Helm," she managed through labored breaths. "Take us through that gap. Emergency, power to engines only." With its last reserves of energy, the Aegis surged forward, slipping between 2 disoriented Zalarian cruisers and into open space. Behind them, the battle continued as the Eden fleet pressed their unexpected advantage, inflicting significant damage on the Imperial vessels before tactically withdrawing. As the Aegis limped away from the engagement zone, emergency power was gradually restored to life support systems. The bridge crew gulped gratefully at the fresh oxygen flowing through the ventilation system, their focus returning as the immediate danger of asphyxiation passed. "Damage report," Arya requested, her voice hoarse but steady. "Multiple systems offline," reported the engineering officer. "Shields and operative weapons at minimal capacity, propulsion at 30%. But we're alive, Commander." A weak cheer went up from the bridge crew, a celebration not just of survival, but of their first significant victory against the supposedly invincible Zalarian Empire. "The other vessels?" Arya asked, turning to Malik. "All reporting in. Minor damage to the Perseus, Hermes, and Athena largely intact. They're covering our withdrawal to the rendezvous point." Arya allowed herself a small smile. "And the Zalarians?" Malik's expression was one of disbelief as he reviewed the sensor data. "The Oblivion has sustained major systems damage. At least 4 support vessels destroyed, others disabled. They're retreating, Commander." The implications of that simple statement hung in the air. For the first time since their arrival in the Valeris system, the Zalarians were pulling back, abandoning their perfect formation and tactical superiority in favor of regrouping and repairs. "We hurt them," Arya said quietly. "Not just their ships or their drones, but their confidence. That's something they've never experienced before." As the Aegis joined its sister ships at the predetermined rendezvous point, repair crews worked tirelessly to restore the vessel's critical systems. In the makeshift war room aboard the Hermes, the 4 commanders gathered to assess the outcome of their operation. "The signal amplification was brilliant," Captain Thorne acknowledged, nodding to Arya. "Though nearly at the cost of your ship and crew." "A calculated risk," Arya replied. though the shadows under her eyes betrayed the toll the decision had taken on her. More importantly, we've confirmed a critical vulnerability in their command structure. Captain Singh manipulated the tactical display, highlighting the Zalarian withdrawal patterns. They're consolidating their forces around key resource facilities, defensive posture rather than offensive. Which gives us an opportunity, added Commander Volkov. With their drone networks compromised, we can accelerate civilian evacuation from the labor camps in the southern hemisphere. The strategy session continued late into the night, but with a new energy pervading the discussions. What had begun as a desperate guerrilla campaign had transformed into something more significant, the first effective resistance against the Zalarian Empire in its 2-century expansion. As the meeting concluded, Captain Thorne pulled Arya aside. "Command is sending reinforcements," she revealed quietly. "Not just patrol vessels, actual warships. The Eden Defense Council has officially classified the Zalarian Empire as a Class 1 threat to the Federation." Arya absorbed this information with mixed emotions. On one hand, it validated everything they had fought for these past weeks. On the other, it signaled the beginning of a larger conflict, one that would spread far beyond the Valeris system. "How long?" she asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Until then, we continue as planned hit-and-run tactics, civilian evacuation, resource denial. As Arya returned to the Aegis, she found Lieutenant Malik waiting on the bridge, reviewing sensor data from their recent engagement. "Something interesting, Lieutenant?" she inquired, noting his intense concentration. Malik looked up, a rare smile crossing his features. "I've been analyzing the Zalarian response patterns, Commander. There's a nuance I missed before." He highlighted a section of the tactical record where the Zalarian vessels had broken formation during the drone malfunction. "See here, when the command signal was compromised, their ships didn't just lose drone control, their entire tactical coordination collapsed. It suggests their command structure is more centralized than we thought." Meaning the Oblivion isn't just their biggest warship, it's the nexus of their entire operational framework. Disrupt it significantly enough, and the whole invasion force could be neutralized. Arya finished the implications, crystallizing in her mind. They shared a moment of silence, both understanding the enormity of the challenge such a strategy would entail. The Oblivion remained the most powerful vessel in the system, its defenses formidable, even in a compromised state. "Get some rest, Lieutenant," Arya finally said. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." As Malik departed, Arya turned to the viewport where the stars of the Valeris system gleamed against the void. Somewhere out there, the Oblivion was regrouping its commander, undoubtedly planning revenge for the humiliation inflicted upon the Empire. Admiral Calix, an opponent unlike any she had faced before, methodical, ruthless, confident to the point of arrogance. Yet, she had glimpsed something else in the Zalarians' tactics, a hint of curiosity, perhaps even respect for the humans who had dared to challenge Imperial dominance. That she knew could be either their greatest advantage or their most dangerous liability in the battles to come. In the aftermath of the Eden Fleet's unexpected victory, Admiral Calix faced the first serious challenge to his command in decades of service to the Empire. The damage to the Oblivion was substantial, primary weapon systems, offline drone control networks compromised, and perhaps most significantly, the aura of invincibility that had surrounded the flagship, now tarnished. "The repairs will require at least 7 planetary cycles," reported the chief engineer, his elongated features set in an expression of professional dismay. "The human signal caused cascading failures throughout our primary systems." Calix received this information without visible reaction, though his inner turmoil was unprecedented in his experience. Zalarians prided themselves on emotional control, on decisions made through pure logic, rather than the messy impulses that characterized species like humans. Yet, as he reviewed the tactical data from their defeat, Calix found himself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation: doubt. Not doubt in the Empire's ultimate victory, that remained a mathematical certainty, given their vast resources and technological superiority. No, this was doubt of a more personal nature, doubt in his own approach to this unexpected resistance. "Sub-Commander Vex," he said, finally turning to his second-in-command. "What do you know of human military history?" Vex appeared surprised by the question. "Very little, Admiral. Our intelligence suggested they had largely abandoned warfare in favor of diplomatic solutions several generations ago. And yet," Calyx mused, "they have demonstrated tactical innovations that suggest otherwise. Their response to our standard protocols has been unconventional." "They are desperate," Vex offered. "Desperation breeds innovation." Calyx considered this. "Perhaps. Or perhaps we have underestimated them from the beginning. Assemble a complete analysis of human conflict resolution throughout their recorded history. I wish to understand their patterns of thought." As Vex departed to comply with this unusual request, Calyx returned his attention to the status reports from across the Valeris system. The damage inflicted by the Eden fleet extended beyond physical destruction. Local resistance had intensified following news of the Oblivion's retreat, with sabotage reported at multiple resource processing facilities. More concerning, the labor camps in the southern hemisphere had experienced mass escapes, the human prisoners evidently coordinating their actions with the Eden fleet's operations. For the first time in the Empire's expansionist history, a conquered world was slipping from their grasp. The implications were troubling not just for the Valeris campaign, but for the Empire's broader strategy. If news of effective human resistance spread to other subjugated worlds, Calyx dismissed the thought. This setback was temporary. The Empire would adapt, as it always had. The humans had won a single engagement through surprise and unconventional tactics. Such advantages were fleeting. Yet, as he stood before the viewport, watching repair drones swarm across the Oblivion's damaged hull, Admiral Calyx found himself doing something unprecedented in his long career. He began to formulate contingency plans for the possibility of failure. While the Zalarians repaired their flagship and consolidated their forces, the Eden fleet executed a series of increasingly bold operations throughout the Valeris system. The four vessels, now operating with seamless coordination, born of shared hardship and triumph, struck Zalarian outposts, liberated labor camps, and systematically dismantled the resource extraction infrastructure that had been the invasion's primary objective. Aboard the Aegis Commander, Novak worked tirelessly, pushing herself and her crew to the limits of endurance. The ship bore the scars of multiple engagements, hastily repaired hull breaches, jury-rigged systems, and power fluctuations that had become the new normal. Yet morale remained surprisingly high, each small victory against the Zalarians reinforcing the crew's determination. "Thermal signatures indicate the processing plant is offline," reported Lieutenant Malik, studying sensor data from their latest strike. "That's the third major facility we've disabled this week." Arya nodded approvingly. "And the evacuees?" "The Athena reports all civilians safely recovered. They're en route to the Sanctuary Moon as we speak." The Sanctuary Moon, a small, icy satellite of Valeris's gas giant, had become the temporary home for thousands of rescued civilians. Hidden within deep crevasses and protected by sophisticated sensor baffles, the growing refugee population represented both a humanitarian triumph and a logistical challenge for the Eden fleet. "We can't sustain them there indefinitely," Arya reminded her officer. "Resources are limited, and the environmental conditions are barely habitable." Before Malik could respond, a priority communication alert sounded. "Captain Thorne requesting immediate conference all commanders." Arya frowned. Thorne wasn't prone to unnecessary meetings, especially during active operations. "Patch her through to my ready room." Minutes later, the four fleet commanders were once again connected via secure channel, their faces reflecting varying degrees of concern and fatigue from weeks of continuous operations. Intelligence from Eden Command. Thorne began without preamble, her expression grim. "The reinforcements we were promised have been delayed. The Zalarians have launched simultaneous offensives in 3 other sectors, stretching our defense forces thin." A heavy silence followed this announcement. Captain Singh was the first to speak. "How long a delay?" "Minimum of 3 weeks, possibly longer." Commander Volkov leaned forward, his youthful features hardened by the weeks of combat. "We can't maintain our current operational tempo for 3 more weeks. Fuel reserves are critical, ammunition is limited, and hull integrity on all vessels is compromised. Not to mention the civilians," Arya added. "The sanctuary moon is approaching maximum sustainable population. Another week, maybe 2, before life support systems are overwhelmed." Captain Thorne nodded, acknowledging these realities. "Which is why we need to consider a more definitive solution to the Zalarian occupation." The implication was clear. Until now, their strategy had focused on harassment, resource denial, and civilian extraction, all while avoiding direct confrontation with the heart of the Zalarian fleet. But circumstances had changed. Without reinforcements, they needed to force a resolution with the resources at hand. "The Oblivion," Arya said quietly. Thorne inclined her head. "Precisely. Intelligence suggests repairs are still ongoing. Their drone networks remain compromised. If there was ever a time to strike directly at their command structure, it's now." The discussion that followed was intense, each commander contributing their expertise to what was rapidly evolving into the most audacious operation of their campaign. The plan that emerged was both elegant in its conception and terrifying in its risks, a coordinated assault on the Zalarian flagship itself, aimed not at destroying it, but at neutralizing its command capabilities and forcing a withdrawal from the Valeris system. "We'll need perfect timing," Captain Singh emphasized, manipulating the holographic display to show the approach vectors. "The Hermes and Perseus will engage the outer defense screen here and here, creating a corridor for the Aegis and Athena to approach the Oblivion directly." Commander Volkov added, "The modified command node on the Aegis is key. You'll need to get within optimal range of the Oblivion's central command spire to ensure complete signal disruption." Arya studied the tactical projections with a growing sense of both determination and dread. The plan was sound in theory, but the practical execution would test them all to their limits. "And if we succeed?" she asked, looking to Captain Thorne. The older woman's expression was solemn. "If we succeed, we force the Zalarians to recognize that the cost of holding Valeris exceeds any potential benefit. We make this system the place where their unbroken chain of conquest finally ends." As the conference concluded, each commander returned to their respective vessels to prepare for what might well be their final operation. The assault was scheduled for 18 hours later, timed to coincide with a massive plasma storm that would disrupt long-range sensors and provide additional cover for their approach. On the bridge of the Aegis commander, Novak gathered her senior officers for a final briefing. The mood was somber, yet resolute, each person acutely aware of the stakes involved. "I won't pretend this isn't the most dangerous mission we've undertaken," Arya told them frankly. "The odds are not in our favor, but every impossible victory we've achieved has been through unity, ingenuity, and courage, qualities this crew has demonstrated time and again." Lieutenant Malik, usually reserved, spoke up. "Whatever happens, Commander, we've already accomplished what many thought impossible. We've shown the Zalarians that humanity isn't just another species to be catalogued and conquered." Engineer Ortiz nodded in agreement. "And we've given the people of Valeris something they'd lost hope." Arya looked around at their faces, tired, determined, resolute. In these past weeks, they had transformed from a peacekeeping patrol crew into warriors united by a common purpose that transcended their individual fears and doubts. "Rest while you can," she advised them. "Final mission preparations begin in 6 hours." As the officers dispersed, Arya remained on the bridge reviewing the tactical projections one final time. The plan was as solid as they could make it, but so much depended on factors beyond their control: the Zalarians' deployment patterns, the intensity of the plasma storm, the performance of their hastily modified systems. In less than 24 hours, they would either make history or become a footnote in it, the human resistance that dared to challenge the Zalarian Empire and paid the ultimate price for their audacity. Either way, Arya knew the galaxy would remember what happened next. The Denwood asteroid cluster blazed with unnatural light as the plasma storm swept through the Valaris system. Massive electrical discharges arced between the floating rocks, creating a chaotic electromagnetic environment that played havoc with sensors and communication systems alike. It was within this maelstrom that the Eden fleet launched their final offensive. The 4 vessels emerged from their hiding places among the asteroids, their engines glowing blue-white against the purple-tinged storm. They moved in perfect formation, each ship executing its assigned role in the carefully choreographed assault. On the bridge of the Aegis commander, Novak monitored the tactical display as the first phase of the operation unfolded. The Hermes and Perseus accelerated ahead their weapon systems, targeting the Zalarian patrol vessels that formed the outer defense perimeter around the still-damaged Oblivion. "Initial engagement commencing," reported Lieutenant Malik. "Hermes and Perseus reporting successful disruption of patrol formations." Arya nodded tensely. "Status of the command node interface." Engineer Ortiz's voice came through clearly, despite the storm interference. "Operating at 93% efficiency. The power enhancements are holding stable, but will need to be within 3,000 kilometers of the Oblivion for maximum effect." "Understood. Helm, maintain formation with the Athena. Prepare for acceleration on my mark." The view screen showed the chaotic battle unfolding ahead. The Hermes and Perseus were executing a brilliant series of tactical maneuvers, drawing the Zalarian defense vessels into the densest part of the plasma storm, where their coordinated formations broke down in the electromagnetic interference. "They've created the corridor," Malik announced. "Path to the Oblivion is temporarily clear." Arya took a deep breath. "This is it. All hands brace for maximum acceleration. Helm, execute attack pattern Novak Theta. Communications signal the Athena to match our vector." The Aegis and Athena surged forward, their reinforced shields glowing as they absorbed energy discharges from the storm. They raced through the gap created by their sister ships, accelerating directly toward the massive form of the Oblivion that loomed in the distance. Aboard the Zalarian flagship, alarms blared as sensors detected the approaching Eden vessels, despite the storm interference. 2 human vessels on attack trajectory, reported the tactical officer. Identification confirmed as Aegis and Athena. Admiral Calix, who had been reviewing historical data on human military strategies, rose from his command chair. "Interesting. They're abandoning their hit-and-run tactics for a direct assault." Subcommander Vex appeared concerned. "The repairs to our primary weapon systems are incomplete. Drone networks remain at 60% efficiency." "Deploy all available defensive measures," Calix ordered. "Bring the secondary weapons arrays online. These humans have earned a demonstration of Imperial power flawed, though it may currently be." As the Oblivion's remaining operational weapons charged, Calix studied the approach vector of the Eden vessels. Their trajectory suggested a concentrated attack on the flagship itself, rather than the supporting fleet, a bold strategy that bordered on suicidal, given the Oblivion's firepower, even in its damaged state. "What are you planning, Commander Novak?" he murmured more to himself than to his officers. The answer came sooner than expected. As the Aegis and Athena approached firing range, they suddenly split their formation, the Athena veering off to engage the Oblivion's escort vessels, while the Aegis continued its direct approach to the flagship. "The Aegis is maintaining course," reported the tactical officer. "Impact trajectory." Calix's elongated eyes widened slightly, a significant display of emotion for a Zalarian. "They intend to ram us preposterous. Target their propulsion systems and disable that vessel." The Oblivion's secondary weapons arrays opened fire, filling space with deadly energy beams. The Aegis responded with a series of evasive maneuvers that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size and configuration, weaving through the barrage with precision that suggested preternatural anticipation of Zalarian targeting algorithms. "They're countering our targeting sequences," Vex observed with reluctant admiration. "Adapting faster than our systems can recalibrate." Calyx watched the tactical display with growing concern. The Aegis was now less than 5,000 kilometers from the Oblivion and closing rapidly. Its shields were holding despite multiple glancing hits, a testament to human engineering ingenuity under pressure. "Dispatch all remaining drone squadrons," he ordered. "Surround that vessel and overwhelm its defenses through sheer numbers." On the bridge of the Aegis, alarms blared as the tactical display showed dozens of Zalarian drones launching from the Oblivion's hangar bays. "Drone swarms deploying," Malik reported tensely. "Estimated 30 seconds to intercept." Arya's expression remained focused. "Distance to optimal range for the command node." 4,200 kilometers and closing, Ortiz responded. 90 seconds at current velocity. "We won't last 90 seconds against that drone swarm," Malik warned, his hands flying across the tactical console as he directed their limited point defense systems. Arya made a split-second decision. "Divert all non-essential power to engines and forward shields. We need to close this distance now." The Aegis surged forward, its structural integrity fields straining as the ship accelerated beyond safe parameters. The deck plates vibrated beneath the crew's feet, and warning indicators flashed across every console. "Hull stress approaching critical levels," warned the engineering officer. "We can't maintain this acceleration for more than 30 seconds. "We won't need to," Arya replied grimly. "Status of the command node." Ortiz checked her readings. "Ready for activation, optimal range in 15 seconds. The drone swarm was almost upon them now, the first wave engaging their point defense systems. Explosions rocked the ship as several drones impacted the shields directly. "Shields at 40%, called the tactical officer. "Multiple systems failing." 10 seconds to optimal range. Ortiz counted down, her voice steady, despite the chaos around her. 9, 8. A massive impact shook the bridge as a Zalarian energy beam struck the ship's port side. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and emergency lighting activated as primary power fluctuated. "Severe damage to decks 5 through 8, reported the damage control officer. "We're venting atmosphere." 5 seconds, Ortiz continued, hunched over her console. 4, 3. Another impact, this one, causing the entire ship to lurch violently. The artificial gravity faltered momentarily, sending unsecured objects floating. 2, 1. "We're in range," Ortiz shouted triumphantly. "Activating command node now." With a final surge of power, the modified Zalarian technology came to life. A pulse of energy invisible to the naked eye, but devastatingly effective against Zalarian communication protocols, emanated from the Aegis, expanding outward, until it enveloped the approaching drone swarm and, crucially, the Oblivion itself. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The drone swarm, mere seconds from overwhelming the Aegis defenses, suddenly faltered. Some units simply powered down, drifting harmlessly in space. Others entered confused flight patterns, colliding with each other in a cascade of explosions. A few attempted to return to the Oblivion, only to crash into its hull when docking protocols failed. But the true target of the command node's disruption was the Oblivion's central nervous system, the complex network of communications, weapons, and life support protocols that allowed the massive vessel to function. As the pulse penetrated the flagship's defenses, systems began failing throughout the ship, cascading from minor subsystems to critical infrastructure. On the Oblivion's bridge, chaos reigned. Control panels deactivated seemingly at random, environmental systems fluctuated wildly, and the artificial gravity failed entirely, sending officers floating helplessly away from their stations. Admiral Calyx, secured to his command chair by emergency restraints, watched in disbelief as his flagship, the pride of the Zalarian fleet, was effectively neutered by a vessel a fraction of its size. "Status report," he demanded, his usual composure slipping. Sub-Commander Vex, clinging to a structural support, attempted to access what few systems remained operational. Primary and secondary command networks offline. Weapon systems non-responsive. Life support failing on multiple decks. The signal, it's somehow rewriting our core protocols. Calyx's mind raced through possibilities, each more unpalatable than the last. The Oblivion was not just damaged, but fundamentally compromised. The longer they remained in this state, the more systems would fail, potentially reaching critical infrastructure like the drive core or containment fields. With reluctance that bordered on physical pain, Admiral Calyx made the most difficult decision of his long career. Initiate emergency protocols. Transfer all essential command functions to the auxiliary vessels. Prepare for strategic withdrawal. Vex stared at her commander in shock. Withdrawal? But Admiral, the Empire has never faced an adversary like this. Calyx interrupted, his voice hardening. Execute my orders, Sub-Commander. We will return with appropriate countermeasures. As the evacuation order spread throughout the flagship, Calyx turned his gaze to the view screen, where the Aegis hung in space, damaged but triumphant. In that moment, despite his logical Zalarian mind, he felt something akin to respect for these humans, who had achieved the impossible. Remember this vessel, he instructed his officers as they prepared to transfer to the auxiliary command ship. Remember its commander. They have taught the Empire a valuable lesson, one we shall not forget when we return. Aboard the Aegis, the bridge crew watched in stunned silence as the Zalarian fleet began a coordinated withdrawal. The Oblivion, now operating on minimal emergency power, was being escorted by its support vessels toward the system's edge. They're retreating, Malik said incredulously. The entire fleet is breaking orbit. Arya could hardly believe what she was seeing. Their desperate gambit had succeeded beyond all expectation. The command node disruption had affected not just the drone networks, but the Oblivion itself, forcing the Zalarians to abandon their conquest rather than risk the complete loss of their flagship. Confirm their trajectory. She ordered, her voice hoarse from the smoke filling the bridge. Malik checked his readings. Confirmed. They're establishing a hyperspace vector out of the system. All Zalarian vessels are following the same course. A cheer erupted from the battered bridge crew, a release of tension and disbelief that quickly spread throughout the ship as the news was relayed. They had done it. Against all odds, they had forced the seemingly invincible Zalarian Empire to retreat. As the celebration continued around her, Arya opened a channel to the other Eden vessels. This is Commander Novak to all ships. The Zalarians are withdrawing. I repeat, the Zalarians are withdrawing from the Valeris system. Well done, everyone. Well done. The responses came quickly. Congratulations from Captain Thorne, exuberant cheers from Commander Volkov's crew, a solemn prayer of thanks from Captain Singh. Together, they had achieved what none had thought possible. They had stopped the Zalarian advance. Hours later, as repair crews worked to stabilize the Aegis-damaged systems, and medical teams treated the wounded, Arya stood in the observation lounge, gazing out at the stars of the Valeris system. The Zalarian fleet was long gone, their hyperspace signatures fading from long-range sensors. Lieutenant Malik found her there, a datapad in his hand, and exhaustion evident in his posture. Preliminary damage assessment, Commander. It's extensive. Arya accepted the report with a nod. And our casualties? 17 injured, 3 critically. No fatalities. His voice softened. It's a miracle given what we just went through. Arya closed her eyes briefly, relief washing over her. They had accomplished their mission without losing a single soul, a victory within a victory. And the Zalarians, any sign they're regrouping for another attack? Malik shook his head. Long-range sensors show them continuing out of the sector entirely. Eden Command confirms they've engaged hyperdrives and are returning to Imperial space. A moment of silence passed between them, the magnitude of their achievement still sinking in. You know they'll be back, Malik said finally. Maybe not tomorrow or next month, but eventually. The Empire doesn't forgive defeat. Arya nodded, her expression resolute. And when they return, they'll find us ready. Not just the Eden fleet, but humanity as a whole. Today we prove that determination and ingenuity can overcome even the most overwhelming odds. She turned from the viewport to face her officer directly. What we did here wasn't just about saving one system, Lieutenant. It was about showing the galaxy and ourselves that no empire is truly invincible. That resistance is never futile, as long as we stand together. As the stars continued their eternal dance outside the viewport, the Aegis and its sister ships began the long process of reconstruction. The battle-scarred vessels took up positions around Valaris Prime, their presence a shield and a symbol protection for a world beginning to heal, and a promise to the galaxy that humanity would not surrender to tyranny. In the weeks that followed, refugees returned from the Sanctuary Moon to reclaim their homes. Eden Command dispatched supply ships, medical teams, and engineering corps to assist in rebuilding what the Zalarians had destroyed. The diplomatic implications of the victory spread across known space, with previously neutral worlds suddenly expressing interest in alliance with the Eden Federation. On a clear morning, a month after the Zalarians' retreat, Commander Arya Novak stood before the newly reconstructed Planetary Council chambers. The crystalline dome gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to Valaris's resilience and determination to rebuild. "Commander Novak," began Counselor Thala, her elderly face bearing new lines of hardship, but her eyes bright with renewed purpose. "We have gathered today to formally recognize your service to our world and to all of humanity." The chamber was filled with both local citizens and representatives from across the Eden Federation. Among them sat the commanders of the Hermes Perseus and Athena, their uniforms adorned with commendations for their role in the resistance campaign. "When the Zalarians came," Thala continued, "we believed resistance was futile. That surrender was our only option for survival. You showed us another way. You reminded us that freedom is worth fighting for, even against seemingly impossible odds." Arya listened with a mixture of pride and humility. The praise belonged not just to her, but to every member of her crew, to every civilian who had risked their lives in acts of sabotage, and resistance to every Eden official who had chosen to support their unconventional campaign. "The Battle of Denwood Cluster will be remembered as the turning point," Thala declared. "The day humanity stood firm against galactic tyranny and prevailed. But we harbor no illusions that our struggle is over." A somber note entered her voice. "Intelligence suggests the Zalarian Empire is already adapting their tactics based on their experience here. Admiral Calyx has reportedly been promoted rather than punished for his defeat, a sign that even the Empire recognizes the value of learning from failure." Arya nodded in agreement. "The Zalarians will return better prepared and more determined than before. But so will we. The Eden Defense Council has authorized the formation of a dedicated rapid response fleet based on our experiences here. The Aegis, Hermes, Perseus, and Athena will serve as the core of this new force, with additional vessels already under construction." She paused, looking around at the faces before her, some still bearing the scars of Zalarian occupation, others shining with newfound resolve. "More importantly, we've learned that our greatest weapon isn't technology or firepower, it's our humanity. Our ability to improvise, to form connections, to care for one another. The Zalarians see the galaxy as resources to be calculated and controlled. We see it as communities to be protected and preserved. That fundamental difference may prove to be their ultimate weakness and our greatest strength." As the ceremony concluded and the council chamber emptied, Arya found herself approached by a group of children students from Valaris's primary education center. They regarded her with undisguised awe, clutching small model ships crafted to resemble the Aegis. Commander Novak ventured one brave soul, a girl no more than 10 years old. "Is it true you weren't afraid when you faced the Oblivion?" Arya knelt to meet the child's gaze. "It's not true at all," she admitted, with a gentle smile. "I was terrified. We all were. But we discovered that courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about doing what's necessary despite that fear." "Will you protect us if they come back?" asked another child, his small face serious beyond his years. "We will," Arya promised, her voice firm with conviction. "All of us together. And someday when you're older, perhaps you'll join us among the stars, helping to build a galaxy where no one needs to fear conquest or oppression. Later that evening, aboard the refitted Aegis Aria, stood on the bridge with Lieutenant Malik and Engineer Ortiz, watching the sunset paint Valeris's atmosphere in shades of gold and crimson. New orders from Eden Command. Malik reported, handing her a datapad. We're to establish a permanent defensive perimeter around the Valeris system and begin training local defense forces. Arya reviewed the orders with a nod of approval. And the modified command node technology being installed on all Eden vessels, Ortiz confirmed. We're also developing countermeasures against similar tactics, just in case the Zalarians try to use our own innovations against us. They will, Arya said with certainty. Admiral Kalix struck me as the type to learn from his mistakes. A comfortable silence fell between the three officers, who had shared so much in the past months. Their ship bore the honorable scars of battle, and so did they, though not all wounds were visible to the eye. "Do you think we've changed the course of history?" Malik asked quietly. "Or just delayed the inevitable?" Arya considered the question carefully. "I think we've shown that history isn't inevitable. It's shaped by choices, by courage, by refusing to accept tyranny as unstoppable." She turned from the viewport to face her officers directly. "The Zalarians conquered 80 worlds because no one believed they could be stopped. Now the galaxy knows differently. That knowledge, that spark of hope, will spread faster than any invasion fleet." As the sun set on Valeris Prime, and the stars emerged in their eternal vigil, the Aegis and its sister ships stood watch over the recovering world. In the vast darkness of space, there were certainly other threats, other challenges awaiting humanity. But for now, in this moment, they had proven that even the most formidable empire could be forced to retreat when confronted with the indomitable spirit of human resistance. And somewhere beyond the boundaries of known space, Admiral Kalix prepared for their next encounter, his respect for his human adversaries now tempered with a caution the Zalarian Empire had never before needed to consider. The game had changed. The galaxy watched, and the ultimate outcome remained unwritten, awaiting the choices of those who refused to bow before seeming inevitability, those who dared to stand against conquest, no matter the odds.